All right, welcome everyone to today's webinar, Kargo Revolutionizing GitOps Promotion Workflows. I am going to give it a few minutes as customary to let people wander in. Looks like there's people already waiting, people already jumping in. So let everyone introduce themselves here. Hey, hey, Philip. Say hi, where you're from, and what your favorite color is. Yeah, give me that. You should ask where what uh what you do for a living, but actually I'm curious to see. So Philip says hi. Green. Okay, yeah. Mine was blue for a long time. But just like and again, hello, hello. Alejandro from Mexico. Bienvenido. My favorite color now is red because I am an FC Bayern fan. So now is red. Um Switzerland, yellow. All right, Thomas, awesome. Udger from the UK, purple. All right. Hey, we're getting a lot of different colors. Awesome. Roman from Germany, purple. Sweet. Green. No specific color. Okay, from Lebanon. Noor from what, Lebanon? Hopefully I said your name right. That's right. Purple for Mace Windu's lightsaber. I like that. I like that. Houston, favorite color is red. Huh, I'm surprised it's not orange. Okay. All right. Romania, green. All right. Toronto, black. Oh, black. I think this is the first time we got black favorite color. All right, cool. Spain, bienvenido, España, indigo. All right, Uruguay. Wow, we're getting a lot of more variety than I expected. Awesome, awesome. Cool, cool. All right, so as you guys are trickling in, make sure to say where you're from, what your favorite color is. I'm gonna give it like another minute or so. I'm gonna start. Is black a color? Oh, now we're getting existential. I think we could do a whole webinar about whether or not black is a color, or is it a lack of color, or is it all colors? We'll see, right? Are we talking about pigment or light? See, we're getting all over the place here. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started. We have a lot to get to here. Um, so welcome everyone. My name is Christian Hernandez. I am an Argo project maintainer and head of community over at Akuity. For those that you don't know, the Akuity and the Akuity platform was from the creators of the Argo and Kargo project, right? So the Akuity platform is built from the same people that brought you Argo CD and Kargo. And it's really intended, the platform is intended to give you an end-to-end GitOps process, right? So it provides an instant, scalable, continuous promotion and visibility across all your Kubernetes cluster that is GitOps centric. So Hong, Jesse, and Alex, who are pictured here, they actually worked at Intuit, developed Argo CD there in the Argo project, ran it at scale, ran it in production, had all these ideas for improvement, and decided to leave Intuit to start the Akuity platform. And actually, what we're going to talk about today is about Kargo. And Kargo actually had his ideas, the idea of Kargo, even though they didn't know what it was, it came from running things at Intuit. Very rich history there. A lot of expertise going behind the Akuity platform. So, if you're watching this now, this is part 3 of the series, right? So we had actually two other webinars following in the series that all ties in together. So if you missed parts 1 and 2, fret not. They are up and they are up on YouTube. So if you are watching this in the chat here live, Angelica is posting the links to the chat live. If you're watching this on video, watching this recording, or if you don't want to look it up in chat, look it up in your phone later, go ahead and scan that QR code, and then it'll take you directly to those webinars so you can catch up, right? So we first had our first one talking about the GitOps best practices, talking about GitOps in general, talking about what you need to do, what you need to think about in when you are considering a GitOps workflow for your Kubernetes environment. Part 2, we continued that, right? We kind of took those best practices, but then we focused on Argo CD in general, how to get up and running, what are some important considerations, and some future learnings there. So it ties into the GitOps best practices because now we're getting more specific to Argo CD from the deployment aspect of it. So now that we've had kind of GitOps best practices, and we had Argo CD, up and running. Hopefully now it gives you kind of a good idea of managing your deployments using Argo CD and GitOps practices. But in this webinar, in this series here, we're going to end it to talk about something we didn't really talk about in the first two, right? Where we were really focused on CD, where Argo CD comes into play. GitOps has always been that last mile deployment. We've been focused on the kind of that last part of the whole process. What process is that I'm talking about here is I'm talking about CI/CD, and um, and CI/CD is very important. It's something that we still use today. It's something that came about of continuous in integration, continuous deployment. Um, we've been doing this for a very long time, and we need to talk about CI/CD in terms of GitOps, right? And so we've been doing, like I said before, doing CI/CD for a very long time. And it's always been kind of this process that you think about in your head, right? You think about, you do some coding and some sort of build happens, right? You need some sort of like a binary build, for example, if you're using something like Java or Go. You need to build it somehow, and then you run tests against it and you package it up, right? How you package it actually depends on the framework that you're using. Like if you're using like something like Spring Boot, right? For example, depending on what you're using, you're going to package that up and then you're going to deploy it somewhere, right? Traditionally, this has been to what I like to call instances. People just say VMs nowadays, but VMs are really nothing but like the name indicates, virtual machines. Whether you're deploying it to an actual physical machine or a virtual machine, the process is actually the same because virtual machine and physical machine is basically the same concept, right? They're just whole operating systems. So you deploy it to you package it up and you deploy it to some set of VMs, right? Some sort of operating system instance, whether that be in the cloud, whether it be on a physical machine, or whether it be a virtual machine. You package up the application and you kind of deploy that to the operating system, right? And usually that is done, you know, traditionally, if you, I'm kind of showing my age there with like FTP, right? Or you kind of secure copy it over, you tar it up, you use, someone then deploys it onto the machine, or you use some sort of process that does that. For example, if you have like Jenkins installed, right? And so when cloud native came and cloud native technologies first started coming up, we still use CI/CD, but we sort of kind of bolted on, right? We kind of bolted on Kubernetes. We in that process, right? We still kept like the similar process. We gained a lot, to be honest with you, right? So first of all, as you notice here, packaging actually became easier. Now we have this kind of universal packaging mechanism, containers, where okay, the build and test process may still be the same. The packaging in from the application point of view is still the same, but from like an operations deployment point of view, it all got normalized to a container, right? So the application packaging actually kind of got pushed left a little bit, and like kind of that was left up to the application development deployment team. But the actual deployment of the application running instance actually happened in a container, and that kind of like switched over to the right. And so we have now this convenient packaging mechanism. And then the deployment here then is basically it just deploys this container to Kubernetes somehow. This felt kind of weird because one, we kind of just bolted on these newer technologies. We still kind of use the same technologies, right? We kind of just, we're using Jenkins. It always feels like I'm picking on Jenkins. There's nothing wrong with Jenkins. It's been around for a long time. You kind of, like it's one of those things you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail sort of situation where, okay, now in Jenkins, you're building out a container and then you're kind of using Jenkins to deploy it to Kubernetes. But this felt weird. And the reason it felt weird because it's kind of like you have this process that's synchronous, like a CI/CD pipeline. You have a synchronous process, but then you have an asynchronous deployment process like Kubernetes, right? Because Kubernetes is an asynchronous process, right? It's built on a declaration, right? You declare, okay, this is how my deployment is like. Kubernetes will make it so eventually, right? Eventual consistency. So that kind of felt weird because it's asynchronous, and then you have a kind of a synchronous process to build and deploy, but then that last mile kind of felt weird because it doesn't lend itself to the synchronous process of a CI/CD pipeline, a traditional CI/CD pipeline. So but then GitOps entered, right? So GitOps entered the space to help alleviate this somehow. So, like I said before, GitOps kind of took over that last mile deployment, right? And kind of put this, kind of this in between step of Git, right? So the idea of Git in GitOps, you have your source of truth somewhere in Git. In this case, I'm using Git as an example. You can use Helm or you can use OCI, whatever. The idea is the same. Where okay, now we're kind of like packaging things up in a container, but then the CI/CD process sort of writes into Git either writes into Git what what the what the end state should be, or what the deployment or a PR. For in most cases, it's a PR, or in most cases, it's a branch, and then someone else does a PR somewhere down the line. And then once that's merged, once that's ready, right, then GitOps kind of takes over and deploys that for you. And like I said before, it kind of GitOps kind of wedged itself in that last kind of mile in terms of um of deployments here. So it's GitOps kind of taking care of that deployment aspect of the asynchronous synchronous process, where there's like kind of now there's this step in the middle where it kind of alleviated a little bit, right? And so kind of a more native way to deploy these declarations versus the synchronous process here. So what now, right? So honestly, even though with the advent of GitOps, of Kubernetes, CI/CD really pretty much stayed the same. And it stayed the same. That process kind of stayed the same since its inception. And as technology evolved, and as we're getting these new technologies, we simply just bolted them on. These newer technologies, we kind of just bolted them on as an afterthought. And so and really, it's time to we take a closer look at CI/CD and how can we evolve, right? CI/CD hasn't really evolved with the times, and we really need to take a closer look. And what I'm saying now is that CI/CD is missing something, right? CI/CD, there's something missing with CI/CD and GitOps. Specifically, if you're using a Kubernetes and GitOps, there's something missing in CI/CD, and let me show you why, right? And so let's take another look back at the CI/CD process. We have this expectation, right, of CI/CD. And this is kind of what we think of it in terms of CI/CD. We think of it as this linear process of you build something, you deploy it to an environment, you run some sort of tests, then you deploy it to another environment, and then you deploy it to another environment, right? Like in your head, you think about it in this linear process, but reality is actually much more complex. And it's far from linear. And GitOps actually doesn't fit too well in this model. So as you can see here, this is kind of like what actually happens. It's kind of like it'll fan out, and depending on whether you do a hot fix, right, you may not even start at the may not start in the dev environment, right? You may go directly into prod or directly into staging. You're running manual analysis, things like that, and since GitOps doesn't fit so well into this model, we notice folks using CI for a lot of things it's never meant to do. So we're a lot of people are using CI for things that the idea of CI never meant to accomplish. And what I mean by that is that CI pipelines is not the same as a CD pipeline. And in the context of GitOps, I wrote that very small here. I wrote that very small here. So for those of you um, who always push back on me on this, I'm saying it in the context of GitOps. We noticed CI being overused for the job of what CD is supposed to do. They're very different end goals, right? So a CI pipeline, the end goal is really just given a piece of code, build an artifact. And the idea of a CI pipeline is they're short-lived, predefined job, and it's actually done once the job is successful, right? If you think about in terms of like GitHub Actions or anything that's like kind of like a one and done type of thing, is like it's very beginning and end, and it's very rigid top down definition, and it's really suitable for things like build me an artifact, or very short unit end to end tests, and it's really suitable for like these specific tasks, and it does wonderfully then, right? But for a CD pipeline, the idea is given this artifact, roll it out safely for me, right? And so in contrast to CI pipelines, CD pipelines are indefinite, meaning that canaries are constantly running, sometimes for weeks on end. There are manual checks, approvals needed, and it's really only done, a pipeline really only done when the next deployment happens. So it's really, really indefinite when the CD pipelines are done. And it's really, really larger in scope, right? So CI pipelines, in contrast, CI pipelines, like I said before, are very, very good for very short, rigid top-down type of processes where CD pipelines so I really have to look at the application as a whole, right? Not just like particular source code or particular artifact, but it really, really larger in scope, and it requires flexibility because you're doing like A/B testing, you're doing hot fixes, you're doing rollbacks, and you're continuously verifying. Even after you put something in production, you're continuously verifying your application. So it's very, very uh, um, very, very different end goals in terms of what CI is supposed to do versus CD is supposed to do. And the reality is, if you remember back to that picture, the reality in GitOps, it actually looks like this. And so we noticed that of creating bespoke kind of custom scripts to do a lot of these processes, right? There is the CI that does beautifully at what it's meant supposed to do. It builds an application, it builds containers, is perfect for that. But then to promote these things between environments, people are using custom scripts. And at the very end, GitOps kind of takes over and does this thing, right? And so between CI and CD, we have people doing all kinds of stuff, Bash scripting, Python scripting, whatever, right? To kind of do these promotions. And when you're going from environment to environment, really you're kind of ping-ponging back and forth, right? You're going back and forth between CD and custom scripts, CD and custom scripts, CD and custom scripts, and it feels very, very disjointed, right? And so we kind of see people getting these ping pong effects going back and forth, and it's really, really, really hard to really promote anything using the GitOps methodology, because GitOps is, source of truth, running state. I'll reconcile that, but doing stuff in GitOps is doing stuff in actual reality, right? In actual production, there's steps that need to happen before the actual deployment, and things need to be tested. So you see this ping ponging back and forth with these custom scripts. And so what about Argo CD, right? So in the last webinar, we talked about Argo CD, how wonderful it is, how to get it up and running, how to get the most out of it. Again, watch that video. Angelica dropped our YouTube channel there to be able to see what's going on with these videos, to be able to catch up. We had one on Argo CD, and it's great, but it really doesn't understand what Argo CD doesn't do. It doesn't understand relationships between multiple deployment targets, right? It's really, really my source of truth, my destination, and I'm just going to deploy that. But you may have multiple destinations, and Argo CD doesn't know or necessarily care what the relationship is between these multiple deployment targets. Doesn't provide a pipeline at all to orchestrate any sort of changes. It doesn't write back to Git. It only reads from Git. And before someone drops the Argo CD image updater, Argo CD image updater is a spot feature. It doesn't attack the problem as a whole. So and because it's not only about writing back to Git, it's about continuously verifying the updates after the deployment completes, right? Argo CD does not do that at all. And so when we're talking about CI/CD, when we're talking about GitOps, when you step back and you say, okay, Christian, all right, let's say I buy into what you're saying. What does the promotion look like then? How does the promotion look like in GitOps, right? And so GitOps promotion is a combination of many things that need to happen at the same time. GitOps promotions can be one or many, usually many, image builds, right? So image updates, especially doing microservices, and one or many GitOps repo commits, and one or many Helm chart updates. And then these processes themselves may have other dependencies that have one or many of any number of these things, kind of like the everywhere everything everywhere all at once type of thing needs to happen and orchestrates, right? And so it gets even worse. Microservices really only compounds this issue, and you're really trying to herd cats of different species. And so I had a conversation with someone at KubeCon Amsterdam. So the last time we had a KubeCon Amsterdam, it was actually right before joining Akuity, because this is kind of what made me join Akuity, is that I did a talk about GitOps. Someone came up to me and said, "Hey, Christian, I'm using GitOps. I'm using GitOps in production, and just doing an update, doing a release somehow got harder with GitOps. And I'm gaining all this value, but the release process just got harder, right? It feels like I'm trading off, right? Like my deployment and reconciliation greatly improved, but the process to update really, really got hard because I'm running microservices, and coordinating everyone to do this release somehow just got harder. And so, so then at Acuity, so okay, so I talked about everything that's wrong with CI/CD and everything that's hard about GitOps and CI/CD. Feels like I'm been complaining a lot, right? It's like, okay, well, what's your solution, Christian? I hear you complaining a lot. What's the solution here? And at Acuity, we came up with something called continuous promotion, right? And so this concept of continuous promotion is it's really the idea was to have a cloud native friendly way of orchestrating promotions for GitOps. And we realized there needed to be this mid tier between CI and CD. There needed to be this kind of mid tier to orchestrate some of the differences between what CI is supposed to do and what CD is supposed to do. Um, and the idea is that CI builds the artifacts, and then the continuous promotion process detects these changes based on rule sets, and then we'll orchestrate the promotion using native GitOps approaches, right? So the idea is that continuous promotion uses is kind of like a translator between them. It speaks CI, but it also speaks CD, so it's able to orchestrate these things. So that way you don't have to write these things in bespoke scripts, right? And so, um, and it kind of continuous promotion. The idea is it still uses GitOps to do the promotion aspect of it by speaking to it in its native language, which is Git. Continuous promotion also speaks the CI native language for GitOps, which is like a GitOps repo, a Helm repo, container registry, OCI to as well to for that to come soon. So um, and so, so this idea came out, okay, continuous promotion. We dog food everything here at Acuity, and we developed something in-house, and we decided to open source it called Kargo, right? You probably have heard of Kargo somehow. That's why you're probably attending this webinar. And the idea is that we want Kargo to to be that glue that holds together CI and CD, right? That enables you to do continuous promotion in a Kubernetes environment, right? And so, um, so how does it work, right? So how does that, for those that who are new to Kargo, and I'll kind of quickly show how this goes. For those of you who are familiar with Kargo, sit tight, grab something to drink, or this will be a great review for you. First is something happens, right? Either a DevOps engineer makes an update to a GitOps repo, a CI process builds something and pushes it to the container registry, and some sort of event like that happens. Well, Kargo is kind of detecting that change, is continuously looking for those changes based on rule sets, which I'll go over in a minute, and it'll trigger a promotion process by taking what some of these new artifacts that you want to promote, and writing those to a specific GitOps repo in a way that you determine. And from there, the GitOps controller kind of detects the change, right? From there, Kargo just writes to the GitOps controller, and it then tells the GitOps controller, in our instance, is going to be Argo CD, to basically do a synchronization. It's like, hey, there's a new version, you better do a synchronization. And from there, the GitOps controller kind of deploys those changes, right? After the GitOps controller deploys those changes, Kargo will then verify those, right? So there's a slew of ways that you can verify those changes, right? You can use, Prometheus is probably the most popular one. You can use Prometheus to verify those changes in place. You can use Datadog, CloudWatch. Or for some of those with really, really more custom deployments, you can use like a Kubernetes job, and you can basically just drop into whatever process you have, right? Whatever binary you use to do that test. And the last step is that once those changes have been finished, it'll then progress to further down. It'll repeat basically steps 3 through 5 in the subsequent stages of the environment, right? Whether you're going to a different environment or a different region or a different Kubernetes cluster, whatever you think, whatever you feel a stage is. Most people use environments. I'm going to use environments. I'm going to use them interchangeably with stage. And so that's sort of the process that happens with Kargo. So with Kargo, you get really the ultimate visibility because now you have a layer of abstraction or layer of orchestration, I like to say, of how to do your promotions in a GitOps way, in a GitOps friendly way. And so this webinar is going to be a little bit more hands-on than previous ones because the rest of this webinar is going to be me demoing Kargo, me going through all the paces in Kargo, and hopefully you have a ton of questions while I'm doing this because this is sort of a more advanced GitOps topic, right? And so there was a question that came up, beautiful question. Does Kargo do a Git push right back to Git? Yes, it does. It also could do a PR as well. Does Kargo sit on a higher level above Argo instances where it manages other Argo CD instances per cluster, or is it the case doesn't actually need to go to? So to answer your question, to summarize the question is that does Kargo sit on top of multiple Argo CD clusters? The answer is yes. It can deploy to multiple Argo CD instances or a single Argo CD instance, however you want to set that up. Does Argo have the ability to promote images in the Docker registry as well? Yes. So Kargo can monitor a Docker registry. Out here in the demo that I'm about to do, I'm going to use the GitHub container registry, or any V2 image registry is supported there. So the answer to that is yes, you can have it detect images from the Docker registry as well. So with those quick questions that came to be. Now it's time for a demo. Now this is going to be a show me a type of demo. I kind of laid the groundwork, giving you a little bit of background of what Kargo is meant to do. Now I'm actually going to show you what Kargo does. So hopefully here, let's pray to the demo gods that all this works out. So here I have Kargo set up already, and let me know if I need to make it bigger or not. I'm not sure what size the screen you got here. So here is kind of the Kargo overview, right? So here Kargo is set up in terms of projects, right? So it's really multi-tenant. You can set things up like different users with different settings, with SSO, with different teams and things like that. So and so we have a Kargo demo here. And so that is my project, right? This is where my CD pipeline is. And I have this application sitting here that's promoted. So and this application currently looks like this. Let me make this a little bigger. It's a sample application, right? Each environment here, I have the dev environment, the test environment, UAT, and the production environment. They all look the same because Kargo is running the same version, as you can see here. And this here is what we call the freight line. So freight is basically a collection of artifacts. And in this case, the artifacts are made up of two things. One is I have a Git repository, right? So this is a Git repository with all the artifacts used to deploy this application. So it's a standard customized application where there's a folder for dev, the test, UAT, and all the production instances. So there is this is very, very standard in GitOps, right? So if you're using Argo CD and customize, even Flux, right? This is just kind of standard things here. And I'm tracking that here, but I'm also tracking a Docker registry here, a container registry. So I have this container registry here in GitHub. And so right now I have version 1.2.3. And for my deployment, I have also 1.2.3 as well. tagged for my deployment repository here. And so the way Kargo is keeping track of this is something called a warehouse, right? And a warehouse subscribes to multiple registries, one or many. Here I'm doing Git and the image repository, as you can see here, my Kargo demo deploy, Git repo, and my image repository of the application itself of the Kargo demo app, right? And so to make this a little bigger, here I am running the subscriptions here. I actually have rule sets here. This is kind of what's really, really cool about Kargo is that what I'm looking for is I'm doing a semantic versioning constraint, as you can see here, for both the image and for the Git repo. So for the Git repo, I'm looking for anything greater or equal to 1.2.3 for both subscriptions, for both Git repo and for both image repository. Write that down. You will be quizzed later. And I am not kidding. I will ask a question in a bit. And I'm doing a semantic versioning constraint, right? Because as you can imagine, people, especially if you're doing CI, people are constantly making updates to Git repositories. People are doing pull requests. You're doing tests. You're doing all this stuff, right? You don't want all that noise, right? You want to be able to filter out and want to be able to have some rule sets built behind this, right? And so here, I'm subscribing to two repositories, Git, image. I can do Helm. I can do multiple, right? This is an array. You can build this however you want, or how customize this however you want. Currently in this example, I'm doing two. I'm doing Git and I'm doing image, and I'm looking for this semantic versioning, which is 1.2.3 or newer. And as you can see here, I am currently deployed 1.2.3 for both my Git repository, and then also for my image repository is 1.2.3. We're using these cool names like Idolized Hydra, right? As you can see, all this version is running on Idolized Hydra. So that is really what the warehouse is doing. That's kind of like that middle piece. Remember when I showed the little Kargo head, and he's monitoring those changes? That's what this warehouse is doing, is monitoring those changes of the Git repo and the image repository, looking specifically for semantic versioning. And all of these here, you can see these as environments. We call these as stages, because it can be an environment, it can be a specific cluster, it can be really whatever you want it to be. We call it stages to kind of leave it generic, right? We think about stages as the purpose of these artifacts instead of where they're going. And so I'm using the standard environment just because it's just easier for everyone to understand, right? It's something we can all understand that we've all done for years. So these stages actually then define how to promote, really what to do. So I have this dev stage here, and I have these promotions that happen. We have these verification steps as well. So remember when I said that after it does the promotion and after the GitOps controller deploys it, it'll have it'll do a verification here. I'm doing a verification here by I believe I'm just running a pod to check. But again, that can be Prometheus, it can be Datadog, whatever you like here. And here's the live manifest. I'll show you really what's going on here. But I basically have a promotion template, right? These are kind of like built-in promotion steps, right? Opinionated promotion steps that basically does a promotion by taking the image and taking the Git commits, packaging them up, and writing them to Git in some specific directory. And then I'm actually creating a branch after I deploy those, right? Because I'm using rendered manifests. Again, that's a topic for another webinar. I'll probably do another webinar where rendered manifests. For you that for this specific purpose, don't really pay attention to this too much, is that each stage has specific steps that you take in order to promote. And so I have one for dev, and then one for test. Let me make this. There we go. One for test, and then one for UAT. And then from here, I have a control flow, right? So I have prod US West 1 and prod US West 2. So for here, you can, and the reason I have this is like, you can have, once you're ready to promote into production, you can have multiple clusters across multiple regions, right? So this is kind of just show you um, what you do here with respect to deploying to multiple regions, right? So you can set this up however you want. I set this up to having specific stages and a control flow of the UAT because once it passes UAT, I'm ready to go to production. Once I click that button, it's going to go to all my clusters here in two, but you can imagine you can have a fleet of clusters. I saw um, a question come by. Can you promote to a fleet of clusters? Yes, you can. This is how you do it. You connect your fleet of clusters here. And once I click promote, it'll promote all of them all at once. So you don't have to do one at a time. Um, and so I'm going to, oh, one last thing I do want to show before I show you how a promotion happens is that in the project, I have, if I can find it here, one second. Oh, no, I think I have to go here. Cargo demo. Yeah, there we go. Edit. So here I have promotion policy set up for Cargo. As you can see, I do everything in GitOps, so it took me a while to find this. But I have a promotion policies is basically anytime. So remember in the warehouse, I said look for semver of get and semver of the image, right? Once those two things are true, once those those artifacts are ready, I want those to be auto promoted into my dev environment. I set that up because I just, it's my dev environment. Anytime I make a change, I want to see it immediately. I don't want to wait for someone to click promote. This is all cool. Promote it to dev. And then I have an auto promotion enabled to UAT, meaning that once it automatically gets promoted to dev, that's what this little robot means, right? I actually have to manually promote it to test. But once test runs, then I want it to automatically promote to UAT. That's what this little robot indicates here. So here it gets automatically promoted to dev. I have to manually promote it to test. It'll get if once that's successful, meaning that once those verifications have been successful, it gets deployed to UAT. And once it gets automatically deployed to UAT, then I have to manually promote that using pressing this little push button here. So and so um, let me go through some of these questions now before let me make this a little smaller, or let me make this. There we go. Put that in the middle so we can all see what's going on. Awesome. All right, I'm going to go through some of these questions here. Will Cargo drive you to the Git diff in the future when you click the Git commit? Oh, that's actually a very, very good question. We should capture that and follow up on that. Angelica, if you can capture that question. That I don't know. I know there's stuff in the pipeline for diffing and things like that, but I don't know if it'll actually show you the Git diff. Okay, this is another great question. Interesting. Is it possible planned that after promotion cargo push image from one registry to another? I can see that being a possibility. I would have to take a look at the documentation. There might be something in there. I don't think there's something in there currently, but that is a very interesting thing. We should probably make a note of that. Let's see here. Uh, so it works for replacement. So someone asked, is this a replacement of Argo CD image updater? So Argo CD image updater does one thing very, very specifically, is that it just detects image updates and it writes that to Git, and that's all it does here. So this is an orchestrator, more generic orchestrator, in that you can not only do that to images, but you can also do that to Git repos, but you can also track Helm updates and in the future OCI updates as well. So is it a replacement? Yes, but this is much larger in scope. So is it a replacement? It actually depends on what you're doing. So excellent question, but it does what image updater does, but a lot more than just that. Um, so see here, view for all projects across all environments. I believe that's what this is here. It'll list that. I'm not sure if that's what you mean, but about holistic dashboard view. So if you can follow up, if that's what you mean. Multiple affiliate clusters. I already showed you that you can do that. And so let me just see here. Oh, can the verification be a script or a Kubernetes job to do the verification? So let me show you the verification real quick. Um, I have this verification here. This verification is done using the analysis run from the Argo rollouts, right? Implementation detail, you don't really need to care about it too much, other than the fact that it can connect to Prometheus, Datadog, like I said before, CloudWatch. But here, I am actually running a container inside of to do a verification, right? I run a container to do the verification. So I'm actually using the analysis run, but in the end, it's just running a container. So to answer your question, yes. So verification could be a script or Kubernetes job, absolutely, because that's exactly what I'm doing. Um, and so uh all this is the four eyes principle. That's very interesting. The four eyes principle, it'll probably be done via a pull request, right? So Kargo can be set up to do a pull request. So cool, awesome. So just check out some of the Q&A. Oh, these are some good questions in the Q&A. So I will pause here for the questions and I'll continue on to the demo and see what we got here. All right, so now I'm going to go through a use case right here. So this use case is basically I'm going to make a code change. All right, so what does that code change look like? So let's look at the code. Oh, let me make this bigger because I think Alejandro said I need to make it bigger in the chat. Awesome, cool. So I made this code change. All right, so this is new version, live coding, right? New version 1.2.4. Version 1.2.4. I'm gonna make a code change, right? So this code change, let me start from the actual code and move up to the HTML. But I am making a config change that basically I'm gonna read a new configuration file from the from disk, and then I'm going to um, read that configuration file, and then I'm gonna write that out to an HTML page, right? And so for that one, I need to read the file, and two, I need to write that out, and someone needs to be able to visit it, right? So I created a new route handler, a new route for this greeting, and I needed a new URL to someone to be able to click that URL in the HTML. Okay, so um, although this is a small change in terms of coding, in terms of the application, it's a huge impact because one, it fundamentally changes this application, right? I'm gonna have to add a button here. That button needs to be handled somewhere in the code, and then that code actually reads a file from a config map from Kubernetes, which none of that exists now, right? And so although this is in terms of writing code, this is a small change. The impact is actually pretty big. The impact's so big, in fact, that it requires a new configuration, right? Me as an admin, I'm like, okay, well, there's this new version of the code that does something um, completely different now. So what I have to do is I had to change files. So those little few lines produce 10 file changes because one, I have to now mount a configuration, right? So now that deployment, now it's now expecting a configuration file there, so I have to write that in. In the overlays, the customization, I have to write the config map because now it's expecting that config map, right? And I have to do that for each one of my environments. And I have to make sure that one, that the deployment actually mounts the config map, and two, that I actually write the config map. So again, those two tiny little code changes produced a lot of config changes, right? And at the same time, I need these to go out at the same time, right? Or else it's going to break the application. These two configs need the image update needs to go out at the same time as my configuration update. And so now I have that in these pull requests here. So let's merge this pull request, right? We're doing this live, by the way. So everyone cross your fingers. I'm going to merge this pull request, right? I'm updating code for version 1.2.4. That is updated, that is in place, that is awesome. GitHub actions are running. So it's building that container, it's going to push that container, it's going to be beautiful. So let's do the same here for the code change, right? So let's merge this pull request. sorry, for the configuration change. So I'm doing the code, which is running, which should finish pretty soon because it's not a big change, but I did not turn on caching, but that's neither here nor there. So confirm merge. So now, okay, so now I did my due diligence. One, the code merged and it's building, and now I have my configuration is updated for that source code, right? So now I have two things that I wanted is there. Um, let's wait here. Let's see. Let's while this is building, let me. Oh, I was gonna say let's go to the questions, but it looks like it's gonna finish. Building and pushing to the GitHub container registry. So let that finish here. Here, need to spend more time on the verification part. Oh, wow. I wish I could. That's actually a good, thank you for an idea for next webinar. Let's do, okay, so now that it's here, I can go here and I can refresh here. Okay, so I have a new version of this image. This is tagged latest, and this is the SHA here. So let's go to Kargo. All right, quiz time. I'm gonna click refresh. It's looking, and nothing's happening. Let's do it again. Maybe I messed something up here. So I'm gonna keep clicking refresh, but nothing's ever gonna happen. So does anyone know? I'm gonna ask the classroom. Does anyone know why Kargo isn't detecting this change? I'll give it 30 seconds. Oh, there you go, Lucas. Yep. Oh, everyone got it. Everyone got it. Sweet. Awesome. Everyone took notes. Yes. Everyone is exactly right. It's because I have the semver constraint, right? I'm looking for a tag or that is semver constraint of this particular version 1.2.3 and newer. What does that mean? That means I need to create a new release, all right, for the application deployment, right? So I'm going to create a new release. I'm going to publish as 1.2.4. So hopefully target main. All right, cool, awesome. Just publish this release. So now I got my code as 1.2.4. That's going to go into its tagging pipeline, which is doing that now. I'm going to now tag the release. Now that's being tagged. Now we're in business. Once this pipeline finishes here, again, I'm using CI for its intended purposes, for building images, for tagging images, for pushing those. All of that is perfect because it's a short-lived process, right? You can also, I didn't have time to build this in the demo, but you can do that same for your configurations, right? You can do linting, YAML linting. You can do things like test for vulnerabilities, or like if you're using old API changes. So let's see here. This should take another few seconds here. See if there's any questions here. So yeah, like look, everyone's got the semver. That's very awesome here. Is there a plan to trigger Argo workflow instead of a single container? You can using analysis run. The analysis template is actually very flexible. I will I'll take Edgin's suggestion. I'm gonna have maybe another webinar talk about analysis and how that works into Kargo. So that's really awesome here. So this is done. So now let's go back here. Now let's click refresh. This hopefully the demo gods here. Oops, sorry. There we go. Demo gods. This should take a little bit, and I should see a new freight coming down. There we go. Now we have new freight, as you see here, 1.2.4. 1.2.4, and as you can see, this is automatically being deployed to my dev environment. So as you see here, my dev environment is now running. It got promoted. The verification is running. Once the verification is running, it's up and healthy. You see it's a virtuous lemur instead of idolized hydra. If I go here to my applications, as you can see here, let me refresh here. My last sync was a few seconds ago. As you can see here, let me make this a little bigger. I said succeeded a few seconds ago. And if I go to my dev environment, let's go to my dev environment. Let's refresh that. It'll say, oh, look at that. I have a new route here. Great. Click on that. Awesome. This application is working as intended. If I go to my dev environment, I see here that is the older version, right? The version, this is exactly what we expected. UAT prod, all of that is the same except for this. Now my dev environment is running this new version of this application. If I go back here Again, maybe I'll do a webinar on rendered manifest. Kargo wrote this into a rendered branch. If I go here, and if I go to environment dev, as you can see here, I did a rendered manifest here. Um, don't have to worry too much. I get this question constantly. The answer is yes. You can write back to main. It's fine. Um, Everyone's very opinionated on this. I'm opinionated. I'm doing it into a branch because I know what I'm doing. So, um, doing app, if I go to app and I go to overlays and I go to dev, this is what I talk about a layered promotion approach, is that I have this customization, right? Of this is, this is brand new. And then my deployment here is running, it says running the latest, but if I go to my environment branch, it actually goes to dev actually runs that actually semver here. So you can have rule sets in place in Kargo that says that layers on your promotions one on top of the other. So that way, that way you can get that orchestration, right? So then when you look at this branch, this is why I use rendered manifest. I can see exactly what gets deployed onto. This is my source of truth, right? In my interfaces main. Um, so again, don't have to worry about that, but just kind of just let you know what's going on here. Let's move this. Let's promote this down the way here. So let's promote the stage here. Um, it says I can re-promote this, or I can promote this as well. What's really cool about Kargo? Let me cancel this. If I want to promote from dev straight into UAT, it does not let me. You notice how this is grayed out. I click on it, nothing happens. But I can click on this and it'll let me promote. It won't promote because it's a pipeline. It needs to pass verification on downstream pipelines. So let's cancel this and kind of just show how this works here. Again, it goes into the promotion phase, which runs the pipeline. I can see that it does all these steps, right? An Argo CD update, which you can connect to multiple Argo CD instances. Verification is running. Verification has happened. Let's go to, yeah, so a few seconds ago, the test app got updated a few seconds ago. Now, if I go here to my browser, refresh this, boom, I get great. But now in the test environment, look at that. I'm progressing down here. Now that it's done in the test environment, remember I had that auto promotion. So verification passed, awesome. Once the verification passed, I am very comfortable in releasing this to the UAT environment. Let's go down here to the UAT environment. It says here succeeded a few seconds ago. Awesome. I really don't have to control anything in Argo. I'm just showing you that Argo is fully integrated with Kargo. Let's go to the UAT. Here again, greet in UAT. Awesome. I'm feeling really, really good about this. The demo gods have smiled upon me. And now I'm now promoting this down to production is really, really cool. I can promote to a specific environment, right? Like if I want to promote US West 1 only, I can. If I want to go US West 2 only, I can. I can do that. Or I can just push it from here and it updates all environments for me. So here, as you can see, the little arrows saying they're both going to get promoted. Or if I just do this, you can see it'll only promote to one environment. So I'm feeling very, very awesome today. So I'm gonna promote to both. Hopefully the gods are still smiling on me. Promotion. So notice how the freight's being promoted to both environments at the same time. It gets promoted. Really, really awesome. Verifications are happening. Very, very awesome. Looks like that is updated. If I go here, see here a few seconds ago for US West 1, a few seconds ago for US West 2. If again, if I refresh this page, I get that greet and I get the production. So to recap of what just happened, right, is that when I did this promotion, this GitOps promotion consisted of two things that needed to happen at the same time. I needed to orchestrate not only the application developers to do their code change, but also to the release management team, to the systems team to coordinate their configuration change. And they can do that on their own time because I am just waiting. I'm basing this on rule sets, right? I'm doing the semver constraint. I'm doing this. Okay, semver constraint, and only when these two things are true, right? Once I get these two things at the same time, then I am in full control of when and how that gets promoted using Kargo using GitOps. And so now let me go down. I've been looking at the chat for a while, so let me switch over the Q&A. Um, so, Kasri, sorry if I mispronounced your name. Cargo 1.4 supposedly will contain custom promotion steps. Any hints of which approach might be accept? Native integration with Argo workflows, containerized functions, blah, 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 something else. Yeah, so custom promotion steps is basically what he's asking here is that when you do a promotion here, there's these steps that you can write. In the future, there will be a way to do something custom, right? So instead of using the built-in kind of um, um, built-in kind of what do you call it, opinionated way of doing these promotions, you can write your own depending on what you're doing. What I ended up doing though is in verifications, because verifications you can have a bunch of stuff. I do some custom stuff in verifications from time to time. So that's going to be the approach is going to be basically you're going to have to write your own Go. You have to learn some Go and write your own plugin. So um, and so thank you very much. Here. Next question in the Q&A. So I see many numeric versions of Cargo dashboard. My application consists of 25 components, microservices, each with its own version. I also some kind of manifests to group all these 25 components and tag with an overall version. Can Cargo handle and show that nicely? Well, show that nicely is um what do you call it? We'll see depending on your definition of nicely, but it does show the many versions. And again, when I say that you have ultimate control here, you have ultimate control here. I'm looking for the same semver, but this can be completely different from one another, right? I can be looking for a specific version in Get, but the image may be following a different set of semantic versioning. They may be further along ahead, right? The operations team may be using there are different semver constraint for their configurations versus the application semver. So these can be mix and match however you want. Hopefully that makes sense. And you can show that here in this environment. I've seen people have a ton of subscriptions and a ton of these are ultimately flexible and ultimately up to you. So the answer is yes. Um, any chance for supporting custom subscriptions to promote non-Git, non-OCI artifacts like Confluence documentation? There are custom subscriptions, yes and no. We're looking for to be able to promote things like HCL, right? Like for those who are using like Terraform or Kafka or things like that. So things outside of just Git, Helm, and OCI, the answer is yes. But that is to be determined. Check out the repository. I'll give you more information after I answer some of these questions here, where you can find out more information. So, um, can I promote group of artifacts images which are part of a new release at the same time in the same environment and not one by one? Each artifact lives in a different repo. The answer is yes. Each artifact lives in a different repo. And so these steps here. So if you're talking about subscribing, as you can see here, you can subscribe to many Git repos. If you're talking about promoting, when you promote, you can do a git commit and push to whichever repository you would like, as many as you'd like. Um, so how often does Cargo look for updates if you don't click the refresh every 3 minutes? That is currently not configurable. The It will be configurable in future releases, but the reconciliation for the new updates is every 3 minutes. So um, yeah, so if rollback is needed, how to make sure the deployment YAML values will also reflect the image build expected environments. So I can roll back to different environments. See here, like if I can actually roll back by going to 1.2.3 for my dev environment. Um, I can do that as a click of a button, since the image and the Git repo are um, are semantic versioning, and I did that. I did that myself. I can go back here, and since I put those rule, let me see here. This should refresh. Okay, this should go back here. Oh, this will take a while. to go to roll back. I did not put any verifications rolling back, unfortunately. Let's sync force, but you can roll back here. Again, I think I did too much of the demo gods here. This should come up pretty soon here. I'm having Kubernetes. I should have used something like Istio, but you can roll back here by clicking that button and roll back. So how you roll back will depend on what you're doing. Again, I didn't do my due diligence and verifications, so that way mine is kind of failing in terms of the ingress point here. So um, we are at a time. We should probably capture these questions. Do a follow up here. There's a ton of questions, ton of great conversations going here. I'm not even following the chat. Um, and so, uh, so yeah, so here we go. Oh yeah, oh thank you, Mr. You said it's in the greet. So here, by the way, look at that. It's in /greet. That's why it's not finding it. Duh. There we go. Now this is the old version. I was looking at the right route. So yeah, so I rolled that back to that version. And then that disappears. And since I have the image and I'm tracking the image and the configuration like together, rollback should be fairly simple, right? For me, I should have had a verification to test to see if all routes are working. So we are out of time. There's a ton of questions that sorry I can't get to, but there is a way to communicate with us. Really, really awesome. So if you want to get involved, please first look at the GitHub page, github.com/Akuity/Kargo. Go to the Kargo community. So we have a Discord with a lot of people from the community helping each other. I jump on as time permits here. So go to kargo.io/community. There's a ton of it's an open source project, so you can see the community there, and you can see the code being updated and interact with the engineers there. And speaking of community, we have a community meeting. So once a month, we meet Wednesdays, every last Wednesday of the month. So the next one's going to be Wednesday, March 26th at 8 a.m. Pacific time, 11 a.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Central European time. With our community managers here. I will actually not be there. I was at the first one, but Angelica, Natish, Faika, she'll be on there. The community leaders will be on there. If you have any questions, if you have anything that you want to talk about during the community meetings, Angelica will drop in the document link to the document for the community. You can get that. All the information is in that document. You can drop it in there, and you will be able to see what we're going to be talking about and what the agenda is here. So, no have time for questions. There was a lot to cover. I'm glad I covered it. There's a ton of questions there, and we're gonna capture those questions, and we're gonna use it for future webinars. We might do a social media post. I might do a video on it to answer the questions. Stay tuned. But for now, thank you so much for joining. Thank you for all the conversations, and thank you, Demo Gods, for making the demo work. So thank you, everyone, and I hope you have a great day.